Requirements of microorganisms. One of the very important concept in microbiology. Let us discuss in detail this concept. Nutrition is a substance used in biosynthesis and energy production and therefore required for all living things. All living cells require nutrition for synthesis as well as energy production. So bacteria also require nutrients for their growth and production of energy. Bacteria require nutrients for building of the proteins. The structural components like cell wall, cell membrane, they require nutrients for DNA synthesis, RNA synthesis, protein synthesis. Even bacteria also require sources of carbon, nitrogen, iron, phosphorus and large number of other molecules. So nutrition is a basic requirement of all living cells. Bacteria as well as all higher organisms require some sort of nutrients for their growth and development. The nutritional requirements of bacteria are grouped according to their source of carbon and energy, because these are the two most important sources, carbon and energy sources. Chemical analysis of cell shows that over 90% of the cell dry weight is made up of few major elements. If you do analysis of any cell, bacterial cell, more than 90% dry weight of a cell is made up of certain elements like carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, magnesium and iron. So they form major components of a cell and therefore they are called macronutrients or macro elements, and they are required in comparatively larger quantity. Macronutrients or macro elements or major elements, major bioelements. They consist of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium, magnesium and iron. These are called macronutrients. So these are components: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur and phosphorus. These are components of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins and nucleic acids. We know that these are major components. For example, nucleic acids, they are made up of organic molecules like DNA, RNA. Even proteins are organic molecules. They are made up of carbon. Phosphorus is present in nucleic acids. Nitrogen is present in nucleic acids as well as proteins, amino acids. Hydrogen is a structural component of all bioelements: carbon, hydrogen, nucleic acids, proteins, enzymes. So for synthesis of all these elements, for synthesis of DNA, synthesis of proteins, enzymes, amino acids, these elements are required. Some other elements, some other inorganic elements like potassium is required. Rather, it is required for activity of number of enzymes which are involved in the synthesis of the proteins. And calcium is involved in providing heat resistance to bacterial endospores. Magnesium is one of the important cofactor of many of the enzymes, especially enzymes involved in glycolytic pathway. All of these enzymes contain magnesium Mg++ as a cofactor. Then iron. Iron is a part of some molecules involved in the synthesis of ATP by electron transport system. Cytochrome proteins, these are iron containing proteins. Then other nutrients, they are called micronutrients. They are called micronutrients because they are required in comparatively smaller quantity. The examples include manganese, zinc, cobalt, molybdenum, nickel, copper. All these are required in smaller quantity. So these are normally part of enzymes, cofactors, and they are involved in the catalysis of certain reactions as well as maintaining the protein structure. For example, zinc is present at the active site of some enzymes. So all they are required in trace quantities, very small quantity. Manganese aids many enzymes that catalyze transfer of phosphate transfer. It's catalyzed by a variety of enzymes, and these enzymes contain manganese. Molybdenum. Molybdenum is required for nitrogen fixation. Rather, molybdenum is a part of nitrogenase enzyme. Then cobalt is a component of vitamin B12. So each of these micronutrient has a different role. They are called micronutrients because they are required in comparatively smaller quantity, while macronutrients they are required in larger quantity. So let us discuss in detail the requirement of these macronutrients like carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. All organisms require at least small amount of carbon dioxide. It is a major carbon source. The organisms which require carbon dioxide as a source of carbon, they are called autotrophs, and other microorganisms require organic carbon. They are called heterotrophs. Then organic molecules are essential for microorganisms, and major constituent of organic molecule is carbon. So microorganisms synthesize their cell wall, cell membrane proteins from the organic molecules provided in the media. As well as hydrogen and oxygen are also found in organic molecules. So carbon requirement is satisfied through the organic molecules provided in the medium. Then nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur. Another important macronutrients. Nitrogen is an essential element that plays important role in synthesis of amino acids, pyrimidines. We know nitrogen is a major component of proteins, amino acids as nucleic acids. So for synthesis of proteins, enzymes and DNA contains nitrogenous bases. So for synthesis of these organic molecules, nitrogen is very essential. However, some microorganisms can fix atmospheric nitrogen. They can convert atmospheric N2 to NH3 like a rhizobium. But nitrogen is required. Phosphorus is another important macronutrient. Phosphorus is another important element. We know phosphorus is present in DNA, nucleic acids, DNA as well as RNA. It is also present in ATP, some proteins, and almost all microorganisms use inorganic phosphate as their phosphorus source and incorporate it directly. So phosphorus is another important macronutrient. It is major component of nucleic acids. It is also found in certain proteins as well as it is found in ATP, part of free energy. Then sulfur. After phosphorus it is sulfur. Sulfur is needed for synthesis of amino acids like cysteine and methionine. Sulfur containing amino acids are cysteine and methionine. Even some carbohydrates, biotin, thiamine contain sulfur. So most microorganisms use sulfate as a source of sulfur and reduce it by sulfate reduction, assimilatory sulfate reduction. This is the role of sulfur. After macronutrients and micronutrients, another important nutritional element of microorganisms is growth factors. Remember, not all microorganisms require this growth factor because some microorganisms have the enzymes and pathways necessary to synthesize all cell components, and therefore these microorganisms can synthesize these growth factors, while some microorganisms lack the enzymes and therefore require these growth factors or precursors of such growth factors. So, growth factor, although it is an essential element, some microbes can synthesize growth factors while some microbes cannot synthesize growth factors. Those microorganisms which cannot synthesize growth factors, we need to provide them with the growth factors, while those microorganisms which can synthesize growth factor, we need not to provide them with growth factors. So, what are these growth factors? One of the examples growth factors is amino acids. So, amino acid is one of the growth factor. These are required in the medium for growth of microbes which cannot synthesize them. Purines and pyrimidines are also growth factors. If microorganisms cannot synthesize purines and pyrimidines, we need to incorporate either purines and pyrimidines or their precursors, because they are essential for nucleic acid synthesis. They must be there. Then third last growth factor is vitamins. Vitamins are small organic molecules that function as coenzymes for several enzymes. So, some microorganisms require these vitamins because they cannot synthesize them, while some microbes can synthesize vitamins which are required by them. So, amino acids, purines and pyrimidines and vitamins are the growth factors, one of the important nutritional element which is required by some microbes. So, this completes the total nutritional requirements of microorganisms: macronutrients, micronutrients and growth factors, and each of them has a different role to play in this cell.